Stanford University.
So thank you all for being here tonight. You know we are up against the NCAA championship, but I think this will be much more interesting to sit and listen to Donna Brazile. I know that you're here to hear her, and so I'll try my best in the short time that we've been allotted to offer up some questions and let her answer in the way she wants to answer. And then I think at some point, after the first 50 minutes or so, I was told.
How many?
About 50, 50, 4050.
Okay.
But we'll let the Spirit lead us. How about that?
Because we're going to hear from the people.
Yeah, exactly. I would much rather hear from the audience than my own twisted questions. But Ms. Brazile, during the primary campaign, you famously now at the New Yorker in December of 2008, gave a very impassioned statement on that panel that you are not going back on the bus. We're not going to the back of the bus anymore. Could you talk to us about what it was like growing up in Kenner, Louisiana? I think it was in Jefferson Parish.
Yes.
And what that was like, what was that like growing up in the segregated South, and how did that sort of shape you as a woman, a black woman, and how does that sort of, knowing what you had to see, knowing what you saw from the beginning and knowing what is going on now in terms of Barack Obama being president, could you talk about that whole experience?
Well, first of all, let me say how pleased I am to be here in California. And once again, you all look great in blue. Thank you for your support, for voting for change in 2008 in record numbers, and for all of you who played a role, whether it was a small role or a large role, in helping to produce the historic turnout that we witness across the country. And let me say thank you on behalf of not just President Obama, but the Democratic Party, and for millions of Americans who are now going to see some change come to their lives as a result of having a president who cares about the needs of ordinary people, a president who does not need to read a poll before he understands that the country is faced with the worst economic recession, a president who cares so much about the least of these that he's willing to put it in writing and put it in his budget and send it to Congress and dare them to support it. So I just want to say thank you for creating that change. Thank you. Thank you. Now, let me just get this Final Four basketball fever on the side, since you mentioned it.
Uh-huh.
LSU lost. Okay, the Lady Tigers and the men lost. The Lady Cardinals lost. The men lost. So if anybody's watching Michigan State and UNC, fine. I don't have a favorite. I guess I'm not the President of the United States. He had a favorite.
Uh-huh.
And we'll see if he won his bracket tonight. I grew up at the intersection of both race and poverty at a time when America was changing. And I must tell you that I never thought I would see this day as a young girl who not only grew up in a working poor neighborhood, I grew up on the other side of the train tracks. In fact, there were two sets of train tracks when I was growing up. There was a side that divided blacks from whites and what we would often say the poor blacks from those in the middle class. We didn't know any rich black people. That was before the Huxtables. So, but it was a very interesting intersection because in order to navigate both race and poverty, in addition to being a black female, you had to understand the political currents and the political environment. And remember, it was the assassination of Dr. King that really propelled this country to move even faster toward our long journey toward equality. And so I grew up at a time when America was moving, it was moving slow. It was the South, after all. And people felt that they could take their time in not only adhering to the laws that had just passed, whether the Civil Rights Act of '64, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Fair Housing Act. It took time not only for the community to adjust, but the people. I mean, it was almost as if your parents and grandparents knew that things had changed, but they were still reluctant to tell you to go out there and see if it was okay to drink at the so-called water fountain or go to the movies and sit up front. And so my mother, who I love dearly, she's not with us She's been in a better place now for 20 plus years. She left my father, who is with us, but now he thinks he's 25 and not 78. And I don't know what harm Katrina did to his spirit, but I can tell you this much: he will not go back until he knows those levees will never fail again. But my mother and father really were afraid for us. They wanted us to have the best. When they would call us in their room at night and order our births, Cheryl, Shiladana, Tater, Chet, Lisa, Dimitri, Kevin, Ziola, they wanted us to know that we could grow up to do anything and become anyone if we worked hard, played by the rules, and of course finished our education. And my mother had rules, and we could not disobey her rules, because she taught us that we could, in fact, violate the 10 Commandments and we would go to hell. And that was like a matter of fact, you just go straight to hell. It was like there was no way nobody was going to forgive you. That's before we learned the Bible and said there was a clause, there's an escape clause there. And then, of course, she would tell us if we broke the laws of the country, we would go to jail. But if we broke her rules, we would go to a place that was even hotter than hell and more isolated than a jail. And so I grew up with the firm belief that my parents wanted us to succeed, that our parents wanted us to really do the very best, but they also wanted us to be very careful in how we would thread, how we would, sort of grow up. But I was a child who dared to dream the impossible dream and saw what was going on the other side of the train tracks, both sets. And I set my sights at an early age on making a difference and being unafraid of change and wanting to participate in our electoral democracy. So that propelled me. There was something about being poor that many of you probably know, because, you see, many of us know what a recession is all about. We grew up during the Depression. We know what poverty is. We've seen it. I know all about commodity cheese. To this day, I still tell people I don't drink Coca-Cola and Diet Pepsi because Kool-Aid was all we had. I never had a taste for anything like that. And so I know what it's like to take off your good clothes when you come home and put on your play clothes. And I also know what it's like to, when you get sick, not to go to the doctor, but to use those old remedies. How many of y'all had to take castor oil right before the cold? That's right, that was to clean out your system. And if your system was clean out, you didn't catch a cold. And if you got a cold, there was some root you could chew, but if you had your greens every week, like you were supposed to, you wasn't going to get sick. And so we grew up knowing what we could do. And you know what? I tell people there's something about poor people, that we know how much money we have and we know what we can spend. I don't know why they don't put poor people in charge of the budget. We would never run a deficit. We were poor because we couldn't make enough because nobody gave us what we were worth. We had to accept the prevailing wages, and it often kept us poor. But it didn't leave us poor in spirit. And what my mother and grandmother and my father and others did was to instill in us a great deal of pride in oneself, and one's family, and one's community. So I never felt ashamed that my mother, when she got us up in the morning, combed our hair, and got us ready for school, had to hurry up downtown to do that for Mrs. Hilbert's family because she worked as a maid. I was never embarrassed that my father, when he got us up in the morning and made sure that we were ready and dressed for school, caught that bus and went and cleaned the schools at the various locations. He was a janitor. Because every Friday when they got paid, they did two things. They settled their debts and paid their bills. They often went and got something out the Lil Way for us. I go to Marshall's now because they still have a Lil Way. Forget TJ, go to Marshall's. They had a Lil Way. That's how poor people. And so I was a young girl who had so many role models. I had my parents, my grandparents, but I also had people that I just met every day. And then somehow that they were going to get on that bus and sit up front, and I'm like, me too. My mother said, go to the back. I told my brothers, I said, now y'all know y'all gotta obey Jean, because you know Jean will spank y'all, but I'm okay, I can take the spanking. I'm sitting right up here. I just would look at everybody and say, good morning. Look, I wasn't afraid of white people. I wasn't afraid of black people. I just wanted to know if everybody was okay. Because is it okay now? I mean, Dr. King is dead. Can I just sit where I want to? And that was my spirit as a child, and I still have it. I'm turning, I'll tell y'all this. I don't tell all my business. It's called TMI, Dr. Taylor.
Too much information.
Yes, indeed. But I'm turning 50 in December now. Yeah. Give it up, give it up, give it up. You know, ain't nothing wrong with it. I'm gonna hit 50 like I'm going back in time. I'm gonna be an adolescent again. I'm gonna do everything. But trust me, there are certain things I'm not gonna give up. But I've been involved in politics now for 40 years. 40 years, nonstop political activism. I've been involved in not just every presidential campaign, but 58 congressional and 19 state and local campaigns. I've worked on campaigns in 48 states. I helped candidates in 48 states, including Alaska, where I was last summer, helping the mayor, now senator, win that race. I tell my friends and family, 2 more states, I will become Miss USA without the bikini. But it's because of that generation that came before me. That generation that was willing to march, they were willing to cross the Pettus Bridge. They were willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Many were beaten. Some never made it across. But because of their sacrifice and so many others, I stand here as a living embodiment of what the movement created. And it wasn't just a civil rights movement for blacks and for poors. It was a human rights movement for all people. Women, gays and lesbians, Hispanic, Asian Americans, disabled Americans. It was a movement to transform America. And now that the movement has given us this new president, we can't just say that we voted for change. We have to stand and do battle for change, because that's ultimately what we envision. Now, I know that wasn't a short answer, but I'm not on CNN.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm not on CNN,
That's just
and
fine.
Anderson is not here. This is not my believer.
This is her show, so
see,
she can do what she wants to do.
So I can go on just a little bit, because it's my energy that's at 10 p.m. Eastern time. Okay? Go on, sugar. Now, I'm liking you already. Any man that give me a free mic and don't tell me to shut up, I like him. Annie, we might have to take him home. Annie, by the way, brought me here because she's a Stanford graduate, and she was one of my first interns when I opened my business, and she's still alive. And so I just want to let y'all know I can use your products here at Stanford, too. Thank you very much.
So how do you look at Obama and, say, Cory Booker and all these younger African-American elected officials that are coming in, men and women, Meeks in Florida? Do you see them as a continuation of the civil rights movement? I was reading where you said that you are proof of the Black Power. You mentioned the Black Power movement, not just the civil rights movement. And most folk who want to find their way into these influential circles don't mention Black Power too often. So I'm wondering how you understand or read the emergence of these new black elected officials, these younger post-civil rights era black elected officials, and their relationship to pre-existing struggles of black folk. Are they episodic, or is this a part of the long continuity?
Well, and also the women's movement, which is also a part of who I am, as someone who was raised in season 2 by the Shirley Chisholms and Bella Abzug and Gloria Steinem of this world. But look, some of our new politicians, let's separate President Obama from the next crop, because we had, in the era of the civil rights movement, we had the Richard Hatches, we had the Marion Barrys of Washington, D.C., the Kenneth Gibsons of Newark, the Coleman Young of Detroit, the Maynard Jackson, and the Dutch Morial, which I was a part of. They had to break the doors down. There was a door and a wall. They didn't see just the barriers, they saw the opportunities. And so we needed that generation to break those steel gates, those walls down, just like Hillary put Madam Secretary. I mean, I'm sorry, I have to remember that we're not in close company, so Madam Secretary Hillary Clinton, she put 18 cracks. It's going to one day break wide open. But the protest politicians opened that door for Obama's generation, my generation to come through. We cannot get to the next, what I call the next phase of our struggle without acknowledging that we had to break the walls down. But now that the walls are down, the next generation must build a bridge. They must be the generation that brings us over, because we have reached that point. As Dr. King said on April 3rd, 1968, he said, I've been to the promised land. This is a mountaintop moment. And that generation must understand that we didn't just get here because simply someone paid the price, but we got here because they were willing to struggle, and they need to see that they're part of the continuation of that struggle. We're not there yet. People keep saying we're post-racial. We're not there yet. We're going there. We're not there yet. But we are heading in that direction because we see the promised land. But this time we just don't see it. We also know how we can get there. And we cannot get there as black people or white people or, all our different categories, our little boxes. We have to come out of our boxes. And that's what President Obama represented. It's the breaking down of all these other boxes that we put ourselves in. We don't need them anymore. What we need is the ability to see how we get to that promised land, and we build it together. We're all architects in this promised land. And everyone will have good real estate. No foreclosures in the promised land. No hungry children in the promised land. No war in the promised land. We have to believe that we can create that, because that's where we are. But I believe that generation that gave us the baton, they deserve a great deal of credit, because they had to break the walls down. And some of them didn't come out okay. But let me say this, because I have one of those mayors. I love him. He was one of my interns. So one of my babies. I have over 300 different daddies, some mommies, no big thing. You raise everybody you can in this business. You try to give them a good political life, and then you send them on to become whatever they want to be. Well, I have one that's a mayor. And I know he's risk adverse. He doesn't want to shake doesn't want to shake the establishment. It's okay that we're going to have the Kamala Harris of the world, the Arturo Davis of the world, the Kendrick Meeks, because we are moving in that direction. But let's hope that they bring the seasoning as well as the sauce. The seasoning, the history. I'm never going to deny my history. And let's hope that they bring the sauce, some passion. We have problems. I mean, we cannot just sit back and say, oh, yeah, 1 out of 6 African-American males is unemployed. Jesus, that's too high. We can't sit back and say, 14,000 Americans are losing their health insurance every day. 19,000 Americans losing their jobs every day. I want some sauce, some little Tabasco in some of these politicians, because I don't want these bland politicians that just because we have opened the door to the White House, somehow or another, we don't have to keep fighting. Obama may have opened that door, but I guarantee you there's still some doors that need to be kicked under. That's why I have to go over there every now and then and open that door, open that too. Yeah, we can have a black social secretary. Yeah, we got a black president now. Can we just abandon affirmative action? We no longer need a Black History Month. Oh, and by the way, we don't need a Voting Rights Act, although we have the most dysfunctional voting system in the world. We still need the Voting Rights Act. So we have some issues. But I want all my politicians, black or white. I tell you, I'm at this age now. You see, I'm turning 50. That's a liberation. So let me just be very liberated right now as a liberated woman. I'm so tired of bland, spineless, clueless politicians. I really wish that all of them, I don't care what party, can they just take a vacation, like a long one, and say, we won't be coming back, because we really have nothing to say. I mean, given all of the problems and the crises we face, to sit back and listen to these bland politicians someday read talking points. How can you read the same every day? Huh? So let me give you my next one, because see, I got some time now. I just extended my own hours for 15 minutes. Why are we still fighting the same old left versus right, liberal versus conservative, Republican versus Democrat, when the majority of Americans are moderate and the majority of Americans are independent? Yeah. So we're still fighting like, who wants to fight with Rush Limbaugh? Please.
Right.
Come on, baby. What do you want to fight over? The deficit? What do you want to fight over? I mean, just run for president. We'll run you around the country. Yeah. You want to debate Obama? Forget the debate. Run in 2012. I dare you. I dare you. But you see, we want to, even our politicians, you know, this is not a battle about whether or not white America will allow more than just one black person at a time to succeed. White America started changing too, long before, see, we just haven't tested them. Excuse me, white people, let me tell y'all about yourselves. I live all around you, so I know you. You started changing years ago, you just didn't know it. You gave up a whole bunch. You said, you know what, I'm over this racism stuff too. What have we been doing? What have we been holding on to this privilege for? Let's give all of this burden, these opportunities to everybody. And so white America has been waiting for the moment so that people can say, oh, really? Obama showed up an hour and they were like, that's the one. We like that one. He's not like the other ones. They're so boring and bland. No Tabasco. Nothing. No pepper. He was seasoned. They wanted something seasoned. They wanted something not experienced kind of seasoned. That old, I've been in Washington for 30 years. I got all the plaques to prove it. Obama said, it's about change. It's about a new chapter. It's about a new tone. And he captured the spirit of America. And that's what we've been experiencing. But we had leaders in Washington, unfortunately, in the form of the last administration, who really didn't allow our American spirit to really soar, because we were just fearing everybody and fearing everything. But Obama in this election allowed the American spirit to soar, and we all captured it.
So my follow-up to that is, are you as excited about Obama, the president, the governor of the United States, state apparatus, as you were Obama the candidate? So.
Well, first of all, I wasn't showing my love during the primary season. I was a super delegate. I had my cape on and I was driving my Batmobile, and some days I had on my spandex and, drop a pin, I could hear it. No, I wasn't showing that. I was cool. I was black, I could be for Obama. I'm a woman, I could be for Hillary. I'm getting old and grumpy, I could be for McCain. No, I wasn't showing love, baby. That was about you all. It wasn't about me, it was about you. So I wasn't showing nobody no love. I wasn't giving up my stuff. A woman has to keep certain things in her pocket, but her jewels, her voter registration card, her superdelegate card. No, those people had to come and show love. So nobody wasn't showing that kind of love to me. No, what I'm excited about, and I say this as an American, I'm excited that we have finally a politician. He is a politician. He's a man, he's a father, but he's a politician. And he's my president. And the last one was my president, and the one before that was my president. So they're all my president, your president. But this is a president that is putting in place policies that girlfriend likes. I was there when he signed the Lilly Ledbetter Act. I was there when he created 11 million more opportunities for children to have health care in this country. Yes, it feels good to have a president who, when he speaks, whether it's in the Oval Office or across the way, articulate our values and can do so in a way that makes you understand what he's saying. I mean, we have a president who just put in place an increase in Pell Grants, who's going to make Pell Grants an entitlement so it is subject to the cost of living adjustments. A president who put $100 billion in the stimulus for education so that teachers are not laid off in the middle of school, so that children can continue to have the resources so that we never leave a child behind. A president who extended unemployment benefits not to just full-time workers, but part-time workers. Are you asking me, am I excited? Baby, you want me to dance? I'll do the butt, the booty, the shakes. No more jerking. No more twisting the facts. A president who's going to restore the rule of law, to close Guantanamo Bay? A president who says that we're not going to torture? Come on, don't start me. I'm in love. I can't wait for him to get a dog so I can stop loving on him alone. Give me that dog.
So today's Washington Post had an article, a leading article, talking about basically black Americans in influential places and elsewhere, putting pressure on Obama and criticizing Obama. And they talked about Tavis Smiley's experience, how it sort of backfired on him. The brother Johnson, who's on BET, they were all a part of this article talking about Obama and whether or not African Americans, if they engage in being harshly critical of Obama, are in some way betraying something. And I'm wondering if you think that, because I guess the question was, is it the right time now to begin to challenge Obama? And I'm wondering where you sort of stand in terms of where black folk are, and whether, would you, for example, get on CNN if Obama disappointed you around a policy question and attack him?
I've done it twice. First of all, you can't use these lips to just mimic talking points. I tell you, they're boring. I did it twice. I did it early on in his administration. And I wrote a column called 3 Strikes and You're Out If You're Faced with Foreclosures. I talked about how during the first stimulus back last year, they didn't include anything to help people who were struggling with their home mortgages. Then we had the bank bailout, the TARP, and again, they struck out. And then on the third stimulus that was coming down the packet that was finally passed and enacted by February 17th, nothing. And I'm like, excuse me? This is what got this crisis underway. We've had a ripple effect since the subprime mortgage crisis. And yet, I said to the president and to Congress and the Democratic majority, that's right. I can talk about them too. Just because I vote Democrat and I'm vice chair of the Democratic Party doesn't mean that I'm stupid. I have not lost my sense, common or otherwise. And yes, I criticize him on that. And I'll tell you another day I criticize him. And I still criticize him. Yes. When I learn, now see, when I go on CNN, I'm ready to do battle. I'm ready to do battle any day. I'll do battle with you over your food. But I'm on CNN on a Tuesday, and we're talking about the AIG bonuses. Now, this is after on a Sunday, I'm sitting there looking at Larry Summers, who I love. I know Dr. Summers very well. See, many of these people I worked with back in the day, so you grew up with everybody. And I said, how, that is not a good comment. You couldn't stop the bonuses. Oh, no. Something is not jiving. So I waited, because I started criticizing the administration for saying they couldn't stop the bonuses. I'm like, and then they said that, well, this is a distraction. Excuse me? What is a distraction? Is people are losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, they're losing their health care. That's a distraction. Can y'all fix that? But this is not a problem. So I criticized the administration for their initial tepid response to the AIG bonuses, as if, what's wrong with y'all? We have to contain our anger. This is not psychology 101. This is the public being upset. Because there are two types of rules. There's one for us on Main Street, and there's clearly another one for, and then they're giving money to people who messed up. When the last time you messed up and got $1 million? Huh? When the last time you created these credited derivative, default swaps that basically caused the entire global meltdown, and we want to retain you to fix it? No, you go find somebody at a park playing chess and winning and beating everybody. That's who you hire. Okay, and then the next day I'm on TV and I email my friends. I'm like, who put it in the bill? I knew the widened snow provision. I knew all of these other provisions. I said, and I kept smelling something. You can smell it before it hit you. And I said, and I got a response from everybody but Chris Dodd. And so I emailed Harry Reid's people. I said, Chris Dodd. They knew I was going on the air, so they didn't give me the goods. Ed Gillespie, I was on with him that day, and he just served Brother Dodd on a platter. And I was trying to say, wait a minute. Whenever I'm silent, I'm like, maybe I'm going to have to kick his butt too. I'm listening to Ed, I'm like, are you trying to tell me something? So I get off the air and I'm still upset that nobody would tell me who took it out. The next day, again, I was on 2 days in a row. Most days, if I'm in Washington, I'm on every day. And Chris died, breaking news. He took it out at the administration request. I was livid. Mm-hmm. First of all, I call him pathetic. Pathetic. How pathetic? How are you going to take that out, saying that, well, there's a contract, but UAW had a contract, and you told those auto workers to go back and tell them to take back their pensions, their health care, to reduce their salary. They had a contract. You didn't give a damn about the auto workers, but you're going to care about some AIG workers? Oh, no. This stinks. So I cut them loose. Now, let's go back to your bottom line. Mm-hmm. So I am not, if Obama wakes up tomorrow, President Obama, now this is the other thing about Black America, our political correctness. If President Barack Obama, I can't call him Barack, can't call her Michelle, the First Lady. I watch myself on TV because people email me, his name is President Obama. Sugar, I'm sure you know him too. Yes, President Obama. But if he makes missteps, for example, in Sudan, when the president there, Bashir, kicked out all of the aid workers, I called on the White House to appoint a special envoy. We have special envoys everywhere. This is a genocidal situation, 200,000 people. And just yesterday, although I wasn't on TV, I still a little blog, you're a little blogger too. Yes. That's why I was at the Mac store this morning. Girlfriend got to stay in touch with the world. And the administration said they were distressed over the president of Afghanistan saying he will review the law that allow men to rape their wife. Review my... First of all, we're about to send him $40 million. You want to say you're going to review? Fine, you review. We'll just hold on to our money. Mm-hmm. 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 Take your time reviewing. We won't give you nothing. No, I'm not distressed. I'm upset, and we need to demand that he revoke that law. So yes, look, this is a president who, in my judgment, is not sitting around saying, as Vice President Cheney once said, so. No, he actually listens, and I think he would benefit from our self-criticism. But let me say this to my brothers and sisters in the Black community. Baby, we need to look in our own house and do some spring cleaning. You got a president now who's putting money for jobs, for education, for health care. So the whining and complaining days, the excuses are all over. What is your problem? What do you mean? The president has put money for Pell Grants, education, health care. So we need to end our years of excuse. The man is now the president. Let me repeat that. The man? That's code for some of you who are not Black. The man is now the president. He's Barack Obama. We can't go around and say, the man. Who are you talking about now? Obama? And let's go one step further so we can stop being, handicapped by our own fears and not understand that this is an era of opportunity as well as responsibility. The person who heads up judiciary is John Conyers. Homeland Security, Benny Thompson from Mississippi. Ways and Means, yes, that's all right. The Lord, you love your people from Mississippi. Without you, Louisiana would ring 50th and everything. Oh, that's love. You know that's love. That's all right. We love each other. She knows what I'm talking about. We just beat up on South Carolina now because they ring 50th all the time, too. But we also have an African American who's in charge of government oversight. We have 19 African Americans on subcommittees, and we have a Black U.S. attorney. We have a Black woman who's head of domestic policy. So what are we complaining about? If we can't fix it now, then forget it.
And And that's what I sort of want to follow up on, because after the civil rights movement itself, you had a very similar dynamic where the black middle class expanded 40%, but then the black so-called poor, or the black so-called underclass expanded by 30%, but much more rapidly. So you had this very thing happen in black America after the civil rights movement. And I'm wondering if that is a scenario that might happen with the Obama phenomena, that well-to-do blacks will do better under this new environment, but those who are at the bottom will go further at the bottom. And in some ways, I just wonder if, as much as we've made leaps forward, is there not a scenario where, Barack Obama's success actually leads many people, for example, the fact that many, in college football and in NFL coaching, we found out that many blacks were not being given opportunities. NPR, where you and I both have been on NPR, they got rid of News and Notes with Farah Shadeh, and a number of other areas where it seems like many people in society were waiting for a moment like an Obama so that pretty much they could quit race and quit doing the work of race. And I'm just wondering, we had here in Oakland, in the Bay Area, I mean, as much as there's been a great deal of fanfare about Obama, this is the one area where we've had Oscar Grant die. We've had a major race, well, there weren't racial riots because there were many white students out there attacking the police in Oakland after Oscar Grant's death. But then on top of that, you had 4 officers shot down the street from where I live in East Oakland. And I just wonder if we're not seeing 2 black Americas emerging.
There are systemic problems that we have to address. During the Clinton-Gore administration, we got at many of those problems of poverty and what I call the higher illiteracy rate, the educational system. I mean, you have to tackle these problems almost in a systematic way so that we're not just focusing on what I call those who can emerge out of poverty and get into the middle class. We have to focus on some of the systemic problems that underline and underpin all of the that brings the community down. Whether it is crumbling schools that fail to teach, whether it's the lack of housing that keeps people in many places in dilapidated public housing facility. We have to address all of the social infrastructure areas. And again, go back to this Obama budget. I mean, I read his budget, and I mean, it's 1,000 pages. Don't fear anything that doesn't have pictures, because that often turns people off. But there are a lot of charts and graphs. And the one thing that I like about this approach that he's using is that there are resources now to deal with some of the underlying issues of education, of healthcare, of helping social institution, which is one of the reasons why he said he did not want to get rid of the faith-based program, because in many of our poor communities, that's the only infrastructure that provides childcare, that provides after-school programs, that really is the lifeline in our communities. But we have the government sector, we have to make sure that we have the nonprofit sector and the private sector all working in what I call a team approach to get at the underpinning of poverty, injustice, and despair in our country. And we can only do that almost one community at a time. I mean, I'm noticing now in the rebuilding process that's taking place in New Orleans just how difficult it is to rebuild a community that had at its foundation before the storm, 40% of the people lived below the poverty line. And part of it is lack of opportunity. And it's where you live, because often where you live determines where you go and how far you can go. And so we have to build those bridges and the foundations. And again, I think the president is approaching it the right way, but we need the private sector back into it, and we also need nonprofit organizations and institutions that once really were a part of the dream and part of how we built a new generation of people. I mean, I didn't just get out of poverty because I had 2 working poor parents. I got out of poverty because we had a Head Start program that was also a child nutrition program and a child immunization program. And we had many after-school programs and grants that were given into the community centers that gave us even additional resources that provided for families and children. And we've lost all of that. And we've also lost some of the underpinnings of how we grew up out of slavery, out of Jim Crow, and into the civil rights. And we lost that moral connection that we had with family. So there's a little bit of everything that we have to do, but this is by far, and I'm not the social scientist in the family, but this is, I think, the best opportunity we've had since the 1990s to make some structural changes that might ultimately reduce the level of poverty, reduce the number of African Americans in the criminal justice system, reduce the number of African Americans who are losing their homes, but at the same time is going to also enable other Americans to benefit as well, Hispanics and others who are also faced with as many crises as African Americans.
We're going to move on in a minute, right, to open up the question to the audience. So if you have questions, be prepared to ask them in a few minutes. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, what concerns do you have about the midterm elections coming up in 2010, if any?
Well, first of all, it is a long way away, and I know
Sarah Palin's not going to be a problem, I don't think, at this point.
You betcha. You know, every year of my life is a 2-year cycle, so this is an odd year, and I normally recover and sleep and rest, and then we get into the political year. Next year is going to be a very huge political year. 36 gubernatorial seats up, 36 senatorial seats up, 435 congressional seats. And the key thing in all of this is reapportionment. What takes place with the redistricting, which will give us even more opportunities in the future to elect more women and minorities across the country. We know that whenever there's a redistricting, we see an increase in the rise of both women and minority candidates that fill the political pipeline, and ultimately we make gains. We did that in 1992, that was also the year of the woman, we did it in 2002, and let's hope that we can do it in 2012. What do I see right now is, you know, let's all talk family business. For those of you who are Democrats, Republicans and independents, you can listen, but you don't have to participate in this family discussion. I was talking to Annie as we were driving here, and Chris Van Hollen, who's in charge of the Democratic Congressional Campaign, is calling on liberal groups to back down from criticizing moderate so-called blue dog Democrats. And I take offense at any member of Congress telling liberal organizations who created this groundswell of change in progressive organizations to lower their sights and sails and let the blue dog somehow or another, set the agenda. Excuse me, I love all dogs. I have a beautiful Pomeranian, but he's not a lap dog, okay? He fetches. When I say, run, Chip, ball, he goes. The blue dogs should not determine the agenda. There's nothing wrong with liberal Democrats saying that we want health care for all, that we want an exit strategy for Iraq and Afghanistan. There's nothing with liberals saying that we want health care for all. That's what we fought for. That's what you voted for. You all knew what President Obama stood for when you stood in line to vote for him. And now that we have the White House and the majority of Congress, why should we cut our sales short? Why should we have to negotiate? I'm all for bipartisanship, but bipartisanship shouldn't mean that we give the other team, the losing team, the right to both draft the legislation and veto it at the same time. That's not bipartisanship. And so I hope that the liberals are able to retain their voice, that they're able to help set the agenda, and that we don't cut short our vision of what we believe this new era should look like, because we also have been a part of it. But what is 2010 going to look like? It's going to be a battle. Oh, God, it's going to be a battle. Those of you who are risk adverse, just take a big nap. It's going to be a fight. Remember, this is a fight over the future of America. And there's strong resistance to President Obama's agenda. Strong resistance. You know what's so amazing? It's the Republicans. I'm not criticizing anybody individually. So if you're an individual Republican or independent, I still love you. I'll still break bread and drink wine with you. But just don't ask me to vote for tax cuts for the wealthy. Don't ask me to give any more tax credits to oil companies. Don't ask me to go back over the last 8 years and triple the national debt and then basically say, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. So they put forward a budget blueprint that was pretty much more the same. It was the same plan that we've had over the last 8 years. And so I'm glad that only 2 Democrats in the Senate voted against President Obama's budget. And I'm going to tell you their names, because I ain't afraid. Evan Bayh of Indiana and Ben Nelson of Nebraska. Name names. Name names. So they don't have the guts, they don't have the stomach to stand up for every child in this country to have health insurance. They don't have the guts, they don't have the stomach to extend unemployment benefits. They don't have the guts or the stomach for climate change, for energy independence. Well, I'm sorry. Goodbye. To the other Democrats who stood and voted, I will back them. But that's how I'm going to proceed for 2010. I'm not like the president that just left us. I'm not, if you're for me or against me, I ain't trying to be a cowboy or a cowgirl. Besides, I never did very well with water pistols, so I never wanted the real thing. But this is going to be a battle. And if you're weak, don't fight. But if you can give us one more election, this is going to be the knockout election. Knock out all of these naysayers. Knock them out. We need one more election to knock them out. In a nice way.
So with that, and I'm serious about this question, and that is, do you foresee a scenario? Let's assume Obama is reelected. Let's just hope. All right, let's have a crystal ball. Obama is reelected and does as well as Bill Clinton did his second term, and the perception is he was a good or great president. Could you foresee a scenario after you mentioned Hillary knocking 18 million cracks in the wall? Could you foresee a scenario where Michelle Obama herself would run for president of the United States in 2016?
I would welcome Michelle Obama running, but I don't think that the First Lady has any political interest or desire to run. And that's knowing her. But you know, we've all gotten different bugs and during different seasons, and if she gets the bug. But I do envision the day that we will have a woman as President of the United States. And I say that with all due respect to the women who have come before. All the women who've run, whether it's Elizabeth Dole, Pat Schroeder, Shirley Chisholm, and of course Hillary Clinton. I welcome, even on the Republican side, even more women from their political aisle running. Hopefully, you know, for those of you who are into the paling, pale on. But that day will come, but we have to get through. There's still racial bias, there's gender bias, but unfortunately in our society, because of the cultural media biases, I mean, look at Michelle's coverage, the First Lady's coverage throughout her trip. Everybody wanted to focus on her wardrobe, but she was making an impression beyond what she was wearing. She was making an impression in what she was saying. And I love it when Buckingham Palace said that it was a spontaneous show of affection. I said, thank you very much. The Queen didn't even have on her gloves. You know she just wanted some dad. She's probably there right now on her iPod. Yay! With her queenly self. I love that white hair. I wish my hair looked like that when I turn 80.
So we have at least 2 students getting ready to ask questions, but my last question to you, at least at this point, is the tenor of this moment. Michelle Bachmann, I've heard Glenn Beck crying and basically calling people to arms. Michelle Bachmann said that she wants her constituents to be armed and dangerous. Alan Keyes has literally said Obama's going to destroy America. He's a socialist, and we got to stop him.
Armageddon, I've heard it.
I mean, is this normal political rhetoric, or are you afraid for Obama in this way?
There's a level of toxicity that has always been in the political discourse, at least over the last 20 years. And I say this with all due respect to my Republican colleagues, that They need to lower the rhetoric, whether it's on, go out and get firearms because Obama's going to take away your guns. Obama has no interest in taking away anybody's rusty gun, their pistols, their firearms. I'm sorry, but, it's just driving around the country, and that's what you hear on these conservative stations. Unfortunately, in this toxic environment, again, the media focuses on what I call short-term debates, short-term thinking, and we rarely see the bigger picture. And therefore, we have to create it with all of the alternative mediums that we have beyond cable television, beyond the toxic radio shows. We have to create mediums by which we educate people, by which we tell them what's at stake. Go on www.recovery.gov. Find out how the stimulus program is impacting your community. Find out who is working on the job creation in the community. What's going on with healthcare? What's going on with the environment? All of this is at our disposal. This president has made it more transparent than ever. I know what is exactly coming into my neighborhood on the green front. I know what public housing units near Capitol Hill will receive money to refurbish in the schools. So this is all at our disposal. So we can listen to all of the hateful speech, but I tell them that hate is not a winning strategy. And the good news is that President Obama's approval ratings are still in the 60th percentile. And we're about 23 days away. It's really 23 days. I only know this because I'm a cable call girl, and I know what day they're calling me. But we're about 23 days away from the exact 100-day mark when the media will go back and do a long, exhaustive report card on his presidency. But let me ask you a question, because I can tell you this from my experience of being on TV. What president you know in his first 100 days has enacted, or put forward a housing plan, a bank regulatory plan, has put forward a health care plan, an energy plan, an education plan? I'm exhausted every day. I said, now I know they all went to school, but can they put out 2-page plans? The Toxic Legacy Asset Plan was 16 pages. They sent it to me one at 11 o'clock, and I said, do you expect me to read this? I'm going to read the National Enquirer. And then play Sudoku. Because if I read this, I'm going to go nuts. But I still have questions about that plan. This is why it is so important to read stuff. Who sets the price of the so-called toxic assets? What are they worth? And why is the government going to give 60 cents for every, 10 cents somebody else? I'm like, I want to buy me a toxic asset. And then I don't have to pay the government back for 5 years. So that still needs some little twinking, little. But still, we have plans out there. You can't say that about the last administration. I even know what he's trying to do in Afghanistan. I know that he's trying to show that this is a regional conflict, not just, U.S. fighting Islam and U.S. fighting the terrorists. So I get what the president is trying to do. I see the full picture. But I still hope that as we approach this 100-day mark, that he thread this a little bit more carefully. And as I always say to my friends, I love them all. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, all these prestigious schools. Just go to the local park and get somebody who plays chess. Just one. I just want one in the White House. Because this is a game of chess, not checkers.
So let's give Ms. Brazile a round of applause for this part of the program.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
So I guess the order will be that you ask a question. If you have a comment, I guess you can make a little comment, but please try to make sure there's a question tied to your comment so she can respond to what you are going to say.
And I hope everybody here is a member of the NAACP. $25 to join. It was $5 when I was a youth. It's okay. But don't join when you need them. Join right now when your dues can make a difference.
Yes. So we'll start with this microphone over here.
Thank you. Ms. Brazile, first, thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions for you. The first is, what do you believe to be the political trajectory for Cory Booker, who is the mayor of Newark, who's a Stanford graduate? And second question, You have managed political campaigns all around. Have you ever run for public office, and if not, why not?
I think Corey is like many of the other up-and-coming, young, dynamic African Americans across the country. They're seen as part of the breakthrough, and Gwen Ifill, wonderful book about this civil rights, post-Obama era politicians who will somehow or another make it on the national stage by virtue of running for governor one day, or perhaps running for the United States Senate when Frank Lautenberg finally decided to retire at the age of 250, or when Donald Payne decided to retire at the age of 313. So there will be opportunities for him, but I hope that he continues his campaign to renew that wonderful city, to put that city back on the map, not as a crime capital of New Jersey, but as an industrial center of New Jersey, as a technology center of New Jersey. We can transform many of these historic American cities, but we need imagination and we need vision. In terms of my own political goals, I have never, ever sought political office, although I have threatened from time to time. And let me tell you when I normally threaten politicians. One, when you raise my property taxes without appraising my property. I said, first of all, there are a lot of older people on fixed income, and you just can't automatically raise these prices without making sure there's homestead exemption for some of our seniors. I mean, I live in a major American city, the nation's capital, and I've seen gentrification take place. I've seen people being pushed out. So I tend to threaten some of the local politicians on that. And I also threaten when we don't have, grocery stores. And I said, I'm gonna have to run and get a damn grocery store in the neighborhood. We got us 2 grocery stores now. I'm competing between Safeway and Harris Teeter now. So that's when I tend, but I love what I do. I love being behind the scenes. I love pushing others. And I love working behind, the scenes and urging others to run. So that's more the kind of personality I am. I don't want to, first of all, it's like getting married. For all you married people, please don't forgive me. It's like having one husband, one spouse, one partner. Having one job, I don't know if I can handle it. I have about 4 or 5 jobs. Just keep things up in the air. I live at 33,000 feet. For me to come down and do one job one day with one, just not my personality. I like to get out. I like to see America 2-3 times a week.
Yes, sir. To the left.
My name is David Chang.
Hello.
I'm on Mom and Pop Business Program.
Yes.
It's already 6 years. I'm trying to reach 5,000-6,000 people directly talking to them. Cultural change can only be achieved by us have a working space, affordable working space. We need to own our medicine. Job is our medicine. Without jobs, we cannot cure the poverty disease. Pass a simple message. Every incarcerated city is suffering from the same reason. We don't have the right. We simply don't have the right. Developer use our land to make money. Every 5 condos, they make $1 million. Pass the message to Obama. Action, action, action. We know, we understand what you say. I completely agree with Obama. And that's why I say, hail to Obama. But if we fail this time to create our own job in city across the land, he is gonna. I'm telling you, this is not a joke. Because you can only find out a process in which we can save the world in cities like East Palo Alto, East Menlo Park, East Oakland, East San Jose, East Chicago, East whatever. Wake up. I give you the same message. I treat you as the other 5,000 people in East Palo Alto. It's time for us to do something. Action. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I agree.
I'll just give you a stop.
I agree. I think the basic tenet of his message is that small businesses, that's the economic growth. And that's one of the reasons why, again, the president has a plan for lending and making sure that small businesses like your businesses and others have the resources they need to stay open and to create the kind of jobs for the future.
I have 2 DVD discs for you and Obama.
Oh,
It's
I will give you his address, but
make sure
I'm not a
you
post
get the
woman.
feedback to the proper person.
I'll
Thank you.
Thank you,
my
sir.
own.
Thank you very much. Over here to the right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sir.
Ms. Brazile, thank you. I just want to say it's nice to see you live and in living color.
Oh, Lord, I hope I look okay.
But I,
Try to scare me. I
But I-
never come across as black and white. Boring.
but I have a question about the media and how it may have influenced this election. And it's in the context of a kid growing up in Brooklyn and seeing the newsreels of the dogs attacking people in the South. As a former TV news producer in Chicago and San Francisco, I have to say that this election year was the most people of color I've ever seen on television talking about issues that affected people of color and giving a different kind of context. How much of that played a role in people being more comfortable with the notion of electing Obama, President Obama?
I agree with you that we had more female as well as minority commentators, contributors. I used to be, a twofer.
Meaning, oh, okay.
I'm still a twofer. But now, I saw more women, more minorities. For example, Roland Martin was my wonderful colleague throughout the political season. I really enjoyed. And often, CNN, I can speak for CNN, I cannot speak for the other networks, although I do from time to time when CNN is on commercial break, I look around and see what's going on. But, we have to keep pressure on the media just like we would keep pressure on any other, institution in society to reflect the broad diversity of our great country. And I was at times, I used to sit there sometime and really get nervous when some of my male colleagues were taught, especially when Senator Clinton, Secretary Clinton, then Senator, was in the race. And one of my colleagues, I'll never forget, I think it was January 7th, and he said, well, that was a PMS moment.
Wow.
And I sat back and I was on air and I looked at him and I'm like, what did you say? I'm like, I know PMS. That was not PMS. I'm like, what? And some of the remarks, even during the episode with Reverend Wright, there were times when the racial and gender biases would I used to say they're fruit from the same bitter tree, and it was too much. But I think that the media has to learn, as well as the country. You all remember back in the day when they would say, well, is America ready for a woman? Is America ready for a black? We spent months analyzing the American people, and they kept saying, yes, just give us a chance to vote. We'll show you. But the media needs a little bit more education of how to talk about policies so that they're not always put in the frame of left versus right, because we missed the point. I wish we had more economists talking about some of these issues and not pundits. Now, I consider myself as somebody who reads the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal. I'm so confused at the end of the night, I don't know what to do. That's why I play Sudoku. Well, at least I can win at that game. I can't win at investing in the stock market, okay? But we need people who will give us the honest-to-God truth. I think we've all been in a Ponzi scheme. That's my whole nature. I think everybody's been in it but us. They've taken our savings. They've taken our basically the values of our country, and with their greed and irresponsibility, and they have left us in this untenable position. And the media, just because of our own corporate interests, we're owned by corporations. I may be a cable call girl, but I know who owns. You know what I mean? And they want us to disclose our interests, and yet they rarely disclose their interests. So we need to call the media into task to be honest brokers, and not just give us this very jaded view of the world. I go on MediaMatters.com all the time to get the real truth. By the way, this whole notion of a liberal bias in the media, I've been in TV now for 7-8 years. I haven't seen it. Look at the program that was just cut from NPR. So I don't get it. But then again, hey, I'm only 49. Thank you, baby. I like your color too.
Over here to the left side. Yes,
Sister
sir.
Brazile, it's so great to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
I'm working with the Silicon Valley for Obama group. I'm the co-chair of the economics group. So what you were saying about credit default swaps was kind of interesting, but I want to get more to the race question. So when our Attorney General, Eric Holder, challenged folks being courageous about discussions of race, my question for you with the DNC, a very good friend of mine, Dorsey Nunn, this brother is in a movement to make sure that all previously incarcerated people are aware of their right to vote and take advantage of that. That's a movement. He's saying it's not a nonprofit. He's not just doing it in one place. He's doing it all across the country. How is the DNC looking at that disenfranchised group, which it really is a racial problem. It's primarily a black and brown problem. But how are we looking at empowering that group so they can begin participating in this process?
Well, I think what we've tried to look at is what I call all of the structural problems, barriers that we face as United States citizens because we don't have universal suffrage. And for whatever reason, voter registration is becoming a hurdle in our society. Not only for people who are felons, ex-felons, incarcerated, it is even a burden for first-time voters, young people, college students, who often try to get an absentee ballot. So what we're trying to do is to look at, we're trying to look at the whole issues of the whole voting thing, from voter registration to the voting machines. And I'm hoping there's already been 2 hearings. The Rules Committee in the Senate held a hearing where they looked at all of the dysfunctions of the voter registration system. And just recently, the House Judiciary Committee took a look at some of the problems that they saw that voters face as it related to their actual election day experiences. Now, the ACLU, the Brennan Center, and others have been leading this effort on felony reenfranchisement, starting with Florida, Virginia, and some of the western states. And of course, the South is where we have to do the most work. We have to work in conjunction with not just governors, and many of those governors are Republicans, but work in conjunction with the local communities, the secretaries of states, which is another campaign that we've been involved in now for the last 4 years, and getting the right people in those positions as secretary of states. As you know, our voting laws, we don't have universal voting laws. We don't have the right to vote. Now, you can't discriminate on the basis of my race. You can't, but you can, in fact, put in discriminatory practices as it relates to how we vote, which is why in every state we have different laws. In every county there's a different voting system. So we have a whole bunch of problems that we have to tackle. And one of the things I'm hoping is now that Eric has chosen someone to be the undersecretary, now that Attorney General Holder, I'm telling you, it's hard. I remember when he came into Eleanor's office, Congresswoman Norton's office, and I pretended to be the receptionist. And the reason why I liked him to be the U.S. Attorney for D.C. is because he's good morning, and he asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. I said, this man needs to go someplace. I sure enough pushed him. And I spoke last week at the Department of Justice. So he's a good friend of mine, along with his wife, Dr. Sharon Malone. But we're working with Eric, Attorney General Holder. We'll work with Congressman John Conyers, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and we'll work with the appropriate senators to try to come up with universal laws that will not only help us with that, but in the Democratic Party, I'm just going to be very blunt with you, it's a fight. Not all Democrats agree. Luckily, Tim Kaine, because he fought this battle in Virginia, he's agreeing, but I can't tell you this is a Democratic Party policy, because it's not. We're going to have to fight. That's why I never, my marching boots, they might need a little polishing, but I still have them. Okay, I may have to use my boots. Not just to march, but do a little kicking. You might have to help me too. Stay in touch.
Sir.
Yeah. First of all, just a brief comment. Donna Brazile, how
you doing?
How delighted we are that you were able to come here to Stanford, and as one of the dwindling number of those people in the older generation who helped make it possible for you and others to be where you are. We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
I think the point you made about if we can't do it now, with all the people that you've outlined being in the government, when will we be able to do it? I'm particularly concerned about the question of the greater assumption of personal responsibility on the part of the black community and the black people, black family, for personal conduct, for things which they do which can have an adverse effect on our community. It's one thing to talk about the various statistics about incarceration, the number of households in the African American community headed by women, the dropout rate of high school males and so forth. But I just wanted to get your view, if any, with respect to the importance. We have exactly what you described as great achievement in this government today, the importance of personal responsibility. Now it's our time. It's time for those of us in the African American community to step up and take a responsibility, a personal responsibility, to whether we do it through the faith-based relationships, faith-based initiative and partnerships. Government can only go so far, and I've frequently been very proud of President Obama when he's gotten very close to the line of talking about we've got to be there with the kids, to turn off the television, we've got to be in the home and so forth. Some people criticized him for saying that he was talking down to our community, and I thought he was talking straight. So I really just wanted to get your opinion about the importance of the assumption of personal responsibility today in our community to really affect change. And in case you don't recognize me with the glasses, this is Clarence Jones. We know one another, right?
And thank you for your wonderful book as well, sir.
Thank you.
I was reminded just a few weeks ago, I was calling home, and it's always both a joyous time to reconnect with your family, as well as often when you call home, especially under the circumstances of so many of my family members not being back home yet, post-Katrina. But I have a sister. She's a remarkable sister. She's number 6. She's Lisa. Of the 9 of us, Lisa was the only one that did not finish high school or attend college. Yet, when Katrina struck, she was there because she's head of housekeeping at one of the major hospitals. She went back. She has rebuilt her life. And the reason why is because she had both flood insurance and conventional insurance. So in addition to rebuilding her old house, which was totally gutted because she was on the 10 feet of water, had she stayed, she would have drowned along with her children. She has built a new house and given her daughter, my niece, who just graduated after taking off a year post-Katrina to get her life back together, she gave her enough for a down payment on a condo. Now, how is it that this young woman with no high school or college education could make so many good moves and pull herself up out of poverty, buy a first house, and now own a second house, even after a storm, when I have some siblings who have not even figured out how to get their roof back up, let alone to get back in there, and they have 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, all other kind of degrees, and 4+. I watch all of this in my family because it's so interesting. Her son, Elmore, is 8 years old. Right after Katrina, Elmore did not want to go to school. He was not only dislocated, but he was in a formaldehyde-laced trailer, a Katrina trailer. Had all kinds of problems and just readjusting, let alone wanting to, even having a desire to learn. Here come Obama. Again, this one, I have 8 brothers and sisters, so I can tell you about black folks. They come in all shapes, colors, and sizes too. And some of them cook beans every day, okay? And some will not even eat a red beans if you put some sausage in it. But little Elmore, and I'll get to your point in a minute, but this is how I look at personal responsibility. Little Elmore is not interested on Saturday morning going to play football or basketball. He is bugging my sister Lisa, Mama, hurry up, get off the phone with Auntie Donna. The program starts in 5 minutes. he wants to go to every after-school program to learn more about math and science. And on weekends, they tutor. He wants to go on weekends. Why? He wants to be like Obama now. Wants to be like Obama. And not only is he, and you know, little Chet, 9 years old, third grade, wants to be like Obama. Malik, 10 years old, in South Carolina, another Katrina ex-out, wants to be like Obama. Now, I have to tell you about little Elmo. He also wants to know, hey, Auntie Donna, have you met Obama's daughter? What we learn as children, and you know, and I'm not trying to be old school, because I know how sophisticated all you iPod, MySpace, Facebook, in my face generation. I know you know more than me. You can cut a rug better than me. You can do a whole bunch. But I bet you don't know how we survived. How we survived. How we made it. How we survived the things that no one thought we could. And I tell you, it really was about personal responsibility, but there was something else that we had. We had neighbors who looked upon us as if we were their children. I had an aunt who lived next door, and she had a permanent crease in her curtains. We call it door popping. But she watched us. She watched our very moves. We had institutions, the church. When Mr. Joe would come home, he would bring us the extra food right across the fence. And when we needed things, we had people in the community to turn to. Personal responsibility was not only preached and practiced at home, it was preached and practiced in the community. You better get inside before that light come on. I know your mama wants you in before that light. That light was a dangerous thing. You know, a bullet don't have a name. Everybody was working together. We have lost that. We've lost touch with our values. We've lost touch as a country. It's not just happening with blacks, it's happening with whites too, and Hispanic. We've lost our values. And we have to reconnect. We've been looking out for number one for so long that we forgot to look out for each other. And so I go back to that sister Lisa. Lisa's always been my inspiration. I have to tell you, of all of the siblings that I invited to DC, Lisa was the only one who said she would, because I said, I can't promise you that I'll have a ticket. I can't promise you that you'll have a seat, but I'll promise you'll have a good time. She was the only sibling who showed up, and I ended up sitting on the platform. And Lisa kept saying, I wish I can call Demetri, and all she was talking about all my other sisters. The best part about being there is that here I had my new digital Nikon taking my little pictures. Lisa had her $2 generals. Rita! TD! And I had to stop her when Dick Cheney showed up. I said, oh, no, Lisa, don't you say that, don't say that. Oh, Lisa, oh, no, you're too close to the cameras. Hillary! Yeah, I still want Bill.
Oh, no.
But she is the embodiment of responsibility, of taking on. I'll never forget when Lisa had to go to her daughter and say, Janika, I have to fill out paperwork to make sure all my employees get paid. Her daughter, who she was putting through college, taught her enough so that she can become the manager, head of house cleaning. You know, that was how we were raised. You know, she's working these 2 jobs, these 2 shifts to get her daughter through college, and her daughter's teaching her how she can move up. That's what it was about. And we didn't just depend on the government. I'll never forget when Lisa said to me years ago, I'm going to have to vote Republican. I said, why? I'd be damn, why are you going to vote Republican? Because she was tired of the welfare system. She said, oh my God, this welfare system. And she told me all of the things in the welfare system that kept people on welfare. And she said, if you just give me some child care, I wouldn't need welfare. If you give me some bus tokens, I wouldn't need welfare. And she was telling me how you can get the welfare system under control. So there's a lot that we can learn if we talk to one another, if we go back to those values, those common sense values that made us a strong people, a strong community. For all of the crap I can tell you about my dad, 78 years old. 78 years old, a Korean veteran. Only left the state of Louisiana twice, once to fight for his country and once when he was forced out by the flood waters. His government took 4 days to get him off his porch, which had 12 feet of water under him. He built a porch that was high enough for that day, and it saved his life. But my dad, I never ever heard my dad cry. He didn't cry when my mom died, didn't cry when my brother died, didn't cry when his mom died. He cried, he said, because he couldn't save anybody. And nobody came to save him. They left him to die. And that took his heart. That took his heart. He said, I just want the people to be able to go home. He wants to go home, but he won't go home until he knows his government will come and get him if something happens. That wasn't all your questions, but I had to tell you that. You want us to wrap it up?
So we got time. Unfortunately, I'm being told by Rance that we have time for one more question.
Let me.
You the boss.
Oh yeah, and Annie has gas. not that kind of gas. It's all right, Annie. I'm not talking about you. Okay, we're gonna take your quick questions, all 3 or 4, and then we'll answer.
All right.
How's that?
All right, that's
there
good.
you go.
Yeah, start with you, sir.
Hi, I'm a big fan.
There you go, sir. Thank you.
I wanted to keep the question short. What do you think is the future of the RNC's, well, they call it the Southern strategy, but it's essentially, electoral discrimination. What do you think is the future of that? How is that a basis for a political party, especially given that it's an entire region? Or do you think that Michael Steele's, how did he put it, hip-hop makeover will do the trick?
Okay, and ma'am, you can't answer a question because we said we would do 3. So I'm sorry.
She snuck over from
She
over
was
there.
on the other side?
Yeah, she snuck over.
See, I'm trying to lead a democracy here. Breaking my rules.
That's
It was
cool.
for-
We're killing time arguing.
Oh,
Go
that
ahead.
was
Go
the sister
ahead.
of the NAACP. All right, I got you. Next question.
I just wanted to ask quickly, you said that Obama was concerned about shaping U.S. foreign policy, but how, as Americans, what is our obligation in learning about world affairs? Because I feel like we're kind of enclosed in this country, and some people don't even know where Afghanistan is. So how, one, can we kind of shape our perspective to know more about world events? And 2, as a college student, what is the young people's responsibility in learning about those events?
Young people, what?
Responsibility in learning about those events.
Okay.
To learn about those events.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes. We're going to get them all up, and then she's going to answer all of them at one time.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Tyler, and I'm a freshman at Santa Clara High School. And I went to a middle school that was 90% Asian, and I'd say about 80% of those Asian people made at least a 3.8 GPA. And my concern is, what is the difference between the Asian community and the African American and the Latin American community and the focus? And what can we do to get the focus in African Americans too?
Okay.
And one last question.
Okay. So you mentioned that we've been really intensely following the Obama administration for these past 100 days. And I kind of like 2 little questions. When have other presidents been followed this closely? And 2, how much has this media coverage influenced the administration to be prolific and productive early on? And I know Obama said he wanted to run a transparent campaign administration, but how much has he been influenced by the fact that we've been watching him so closely?
Thank you. First of all great questions, and let me see if I can do it real quick. Michael Steele is off to a very rocky start as chairman of the Republican National Committee. And, you know, he's the gift that keeps on giving, along with Sarah Palin. And until he begins to focus on the future of the Republican Party and how it reemerges after 3 electoral defeats, they have not been able to capture first-time voters and new voters in 5 cycles. The Republican Party will become a regional party, so they will ultimately become a Southern party. Unable to win in the Midwest, in the Northeast, out in the Pacific West, the Mountain West, they are essentially a very regional party, a very narrowly based party that appeals to conservatives and not just ultra-right religious, church-going people, but they've lost the ability to reach women and independents, and Hispanics, which that's the future of American politics. And I personally don't care if he gets his stuff together, that's his business, okay? Whatever. And the Southern strategy, you know, the Deep South, my native South, and many of you who are Southerners, it's changing. It's going to be slow. We know it's going to take time. But ultimately, I still believe that, as Dr. King once said, the arc of the moral universe always been toward justice. And we are going to see that day in our native South when we too can rise. And that day will come. And I will be here to witness that. We live in a global environment. We live in a global competitive marketplace. When we go to the bank and deposit, our money goes around the world before it comes back, if it comes back at all. And so we have to be prepared to live in this global environment as neighbors. And then one of the focus of the president's trip was to not just lecture, but also to listen, to be an ally, to be a partner, to rebuild our alliances. And that was the focus. That's why he had bilateral meetings with the president of Russia. Don't ask me to pronounce his name,
Medvedev.
Thank you. Pasiba, Das Vidanya, whatever. And he had bilateral sessions with, with India and other wonderful emerging markets. We cannot ignore that the world is changing, and they won't stop to catch up with us. And so I think that as young people engage in so many things now in college, you have an opportunity to also reshape this world and to be a part of it. Don't limit your sights to just this state or this country. Explore and to see what the world will require of us as global citizens. And young people, you have more opportunities at your disposal than any of us ever dreamed we would have at the same period of our lives. And that's one of the reasons why I'm always excited to be on college campuses and go back to DC every Wednesday to teach my own class. The family, you mentioned about Asians, and very soon, I was the smartest girl in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. In fact, I was so smart in math that my teacher, Mr. Marchand, allowed me to take home papers to grade for him. Oh, Brazils can count. Why do you think I play Sudoku? I love numbers. And I also watch my own bank accounts very well. But then I got to seventh grade, after integration occurred in Boston, and very soon, I'll never forget, I'm like, now how can she be so much better at this than me? And I went up to her once, because for me, competition is good for the soul, but in my case, I like to figure out how to beat you. And she said to me, both my parents are doctors, and they taught me this wonderful way of figuring out math problems. And she taught me. And she said, and it made it so exciting to know that Tom is 10 years older than Bob. How old is Sue? And she taught me how to figure out word problems. And ultimately, I never beat in math, but I was able to beat in other subjects, especially history. But Asians are no different than Hispanics and blacks. It's how you rear your children and what you allow them to ingest and digest. I mean, my parents, they were poor, but we somehow or another afforded that encyclopedia, the Louisiana Weekly, and Jet.
That's right.
And Jet. You ever notice that black people are environmentalists when it comes to recycling Jet and Ebony? You just send it to somebody else in the family. We never throw away Jet or Ebony. We keep it. It's the only thing that is timeless. And so we have to, the Asian families are more cohesive, they're more intact. We have to get back to the basics. It's what, Clarence mentioned a little bit. It's about personal responsibility. Teaching our children, making sure that they're not ingesting crap. I'll tell you this. I have one rule. Auntie Donna have one rule for my nieces and nephews. I do not buy toys. I buy books, and I will prepare to help them get in college and finish college. I will not work my life, work to the bones, and buy them the silly video games that will ruin their minds, that will not give them a sense of the world, but give them a sense of destruction and despair. And so it's what you put in is often what you get out. And I hope that, you know, we do more to foster reading and learning and talking to our young people. Last thing, is President Obama covered? I think part of it is the media is fascinated with this couple. And also, remember, they are working us like I've never been worked before. Today, I was, again, at the Mac store trying to figure out how to get Miss Mac to work. It ain't no Mr. Mac, it's Miss Mac, okay? And I'm like, work, baby, because mommy needs her emails. Work, baby. And again, White House guidance for the president, for the vice president. This White House is also engaging us. So one of the reasons why there's so much coverage of Obama is the president is engaging us. So it's a two-way street. He's engaging us at a time when the country's in deep financial turmoil, where the markets have collapsed, companies are imploding, whole industries are disappearing, and the media is fascinated with, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I've never heard them ask President Bush, what are you going to do? When are you going to get our troops? Another story, you need to keep me here for another 10 minutes. Let me close. How? I heard that laugh. Oh, I do shut up sometimes. Let me first of all thank all of the sponsors, as well as the faculty and others who turned out tonight. Let me thank you again for your tenacity, your courage, the goodwill that you fostered on this campus and other campuses across this country that really brought about this wonderful moment of transformation. President Obama was famous throughout the entire presidential season in saying, this is our moment, this is our time. My friends, he is calling upon all of you to be a part of this historic season of hope, of transformation. And you need to figure out how you can answer the call, whether it's at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. This is your moment. This is your time. And let the history books one day reflect that you didn't just vote for change, but you stood up for the first 4 years and the 4 years after for lasting change, permanent change. I hope that when we look back 8 years from now and we say, what did we do over the last 8 years? We can say with pride that we were able to get more children health insurance, that we helped more people remain in their homes and their communities, and that we help to save and create millions of new jobs for the future. This is what we can do if we stick together and stand as one people, one country. Thank you, and again, on behalf of the President, thank you so much. Thank you.
For more, please visit us at stanford.edu.